Kenzie Hatcher from Miss Ball's 6-hour class. When I say the word sun, what does it make you think about? Personally, it reminds me of summer, hanging out on beaches and vacationing and maybe reading a good book. The sun in literature is usually used as a symbol for hope, peace, warmth, and joy. In The Stranger, however, it represents something very different. Albert Camus uses the sun in The Stranger to help symbolize his internal conflict with society and explain why society eventually kills him. I'll first start with a poem I wrote and connect it to different parts of The Stranger. The first half of the poem will relate the society to the sun, and the second half will explain why society killed him. The sun. You are the sun hurting my head and blinding my eyes. You are the sun glaring down and judging me. You are the sun who questioned why I didn't cry. You are the sun who condemned me to bring me my freedom. Who are you? Who are you to judge, pray, question, cry, forgive me? Now if you look at the first line, it says, you are the sun hurting my head and blinding my eyes. I found 3 quotes for the first part of it, where it says, hurting my head. The sun was the same day I buried Mammon, and like then my forehead was especially hurting me, all the veins in it throbbing under the skin. Camus 58. The second, all I could feel were the symbols of sunlight crashing on my forehead. Camus 59. And the third, a long flashing blade cutting at my forehead. Camus 59. In all 3 of these quotes, the repetition of the forehead made me think that, for some reasons, sun and society attacking his forehead and making it hurt so bad was very important. And when I did some research into it, I came to a surprising but fitting discovery. I found an article by Dr. Bulmer, a neuropsychologist who is an expert in the lobes of the brain, and your frontal lobe is right behind your forehead, and he says, the frontal lobe of your brain is considered our emotional control center and home to our personality. The frontal lobes are involved in motor function, problem solving, spontaneity, memory, language, initiation, judgment, impulse control, social, and sexual behavior. In other words, your frontal lobe can change your actions so you would want to do them more based on society, or it can override them. A few words stuck out to me in this, which was impulse control, social behavior, and judgment. When comparing these traits to Mersault, one can see that they match up perfectly. He's not only impulsive when he goes around killing people and blaming it on the sun, but he also has a lack of judgment when he doesn't really react the same as other people do. He will go to his mother's funeral, but he won't even cry. He thinks of it more of an annoyance than anything else. Without this descriptive relationship between the sun and society in the novel, his internal struggle with society could have been easily overlooked. In both instances where he was killing the Arab and when he was at his mother's funeral, this description of his forehead hurting was present in both of them. This leads to the next line of my poem, which states, "And blinding my eyes." The quote that inspired this line goes, all I could feel were the symbols of sunlight crashing on my forehead, and indistinctly, the dazzling spear flying up from the knife in front of me. Now close your eyes and picture this. You just sprinted a mile and have another to go. You're trying to catch your breath and you're dripping with sweat. Suddenly you look up at the sky and the sun shines directly into your eye, making your vision go black and purple for a minute. Everything around you shimmers in the heat as you try to regain your vision. Reflective objects around you keep hurting your eyes over and over again with their reflective light. This is the situation Mersault was put in when he approached the Arab he was about to kill. Mersault's pain was not only in his forehead, but his eyes were attacked by the sun's light. I say attacked because the quote says, a dazzling spear flying up from the knife. The light reflecting in his eyes being compared to a spear, which is usually an offensive weapon used to attack people during times of war. When I relate the sun to society and why would society want to attack him at this time, I think it makes sense, because they would want to stop him from killing a person. This leads me to the next stanza of my poem, which says, you are the sun glaring down and judging me. The quote that inspired this poem says, the glare from the sun was unbearable. Camus 16. This quote is from the beginning of the novel when he was at his mother's funeral. The word glare used in the sentence uses to personify the sky, uses a very negative connotation. When you think of someone glaring at you, you think of a parent scolding you for doing something wrong, or when you're a kid taking a cookie out of the cookie jar. It would make sense that society would glare at him because they would disapprove of his lack of emotion at his mother's funeral and how he didn't really care that his mother had just died. They would think it inhumane and they would judge him. This leads me to the next line of my poem, which starts to explain why society killed him. You are the son who, the part of my poem where it says, "You are the son who questioned why I didn't cry." The quote that inspired this part of my poem is on pages 89 to 90 and states, "To another question he replied he had been surprised by my calm the day of the funeral. He was asked what he meant by calm. The director looked down at the tips of his shoes and said that I hadn't wanted to see Maman, and that I hadn't cried once, and that I had left right after the funeral without paying my last respects to her grave. And one other thing surprised him. I didn't know how old Maman was." Camus, 96. This quote is during the second half of the trial where the jury is disliking him more and more. They're hearing how much less of a person he is because he can't show emotion and he didn't care for his mother and he killed a person and then blamed it on the son, which everyone laughed off. They were horrified that he didn't care for his own mother and that he found her funeral more annoying than anything else. This is when the jury began to realize that he doesn't care about anyone or anything, which makes him a threat to those around him. Think about it. What prevents you from taking a gun and shooting any person at random? The usual answers include humanity, morals, and common sense. Meursault wasn't connected to anybody like you and I are. He never cared about anyone, not even his girlfriend, when she asks if he loves her. He says no, but it doesn't really mean anything. Because he is not restricted by relationships with people, society, or a deity, he is a risk. He has no commitments or moral obligations or a level of emotion that can stop him from doing whatever he feels like at the moment. He tried to be like everyone else to a point. He got a girlfriend, he had a life, some friends, a job, but he never committed himself emotionally. Thus, society became scared of him and sentenced him to death. This explains the part of my poem that says, "You are the son who condemned me." If you noticed, the entire poem has a connotation that sounds accusatory. This was inspired by Meursault's fight with the priest, and it's shown in the repetition of "you are the son," and also "who are you? Who are you to?" It often sounds like when he talked to the priest, which was often in angry tones, and he often yelled or even blew up at him. He describes what conclusion during this fight he came to about his life and says, "What did other people's deaths or a mother's love matter to me? What did his God or the lives people choose or the fate they think they elect matter to me?" Camus, 121. In this quote, Meursault starts to accept that he is separate from society. He admits to not caring anything about his life, his family, his friends, even the fact that he killed a man. He goes on how to describe how this relationship affects him and says, "As if a blind rage had washed me clean, rid me of hope. For the first time, I that night alive with signs and stars, I opened myself to the gentle indifference of the world, finding it so much like myself, so like a brother, really, that I felt like I had been happy and that I was happy again. For everything to be consummated, for me to feel less alone, I had only to wish that there be a large crowd of spectators the day of my execution, and that they greet me with their cries of hate." Camus, 121. In this quote, Meursault finally accepts that he is separate from society and does not want to be any part of it. He wants people to recognize that he is not a part of them, and he wants to be alienated by them, and thus he wants their cries of hate when he dies. This is where his struggle with society ends. He accepts this indifference, and the sun no longer has the sting it once had on him, which explains the part of my poem where it says that condemning him brought him his freedom. Killing him made him accept that he was apart from society. This brings me to the last part of my poem, which states, "Who are you? Who are you to judge, pray, question, cry, forgive me?" Each word refers to a different person from society. The word judge refers to the jury and the people of the court. Pray and forgive refer to the priest. Question refers to the neighbors in the court. And cry refers to his girlfriend. If he thought himself separate from society, then what right did they have to judge, pray, question, cry, or forgive him? He felt like he had no right to be judged by the jury, to be forgiven or prayed for from the priest, or questioned by his gossiping neighbors, or cried over by his girlfriend. Now that we know the thought behind each line of the poem, I will restate it. The sun. You are the sun, hurting my head and blinding my eyes. You are the sun, glaring down and judging me. You are the sun who questioned why I didn't cry. You are the sun who condemned me to bring me my freedom. Who are you? Who are you to judge, pray, question, cry, forgive me? I'll conclude my speech with a quote from James A. Baldwin. The most dangerous creation of any society is the man who has nothing to lose.